Yo, welcome people. Okay, so it is Sunday. Time to get a little bit serious. And today I want to talk about the epidemic of insecure men because it does seem to be a trend in recent times. And by the way, this isn't anything new. It's been around a long time, but it does seem to be a trend in recent times of guys doing, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a YouTube channel or TikTok videos, just saying some of the most egregious things that I'm not sure that they realize is really showcases their own insecurities. And by the way, I don't mean this as an insult. I do consider myself to be somebody who has very many insecurities, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I feel like I should say something for what it's worth to kind of put it out there. But before I get into the video, I haven't done this for a little while. Time for a coffee check. So I got the Americano from a place called Boulevard, London. It was £3 for the Americano. Now, Americanos I feel like are typically quite overpriced just anyway. £3 is definitely a little bit more than an average Americano, which is already overpriced. But when he was making it, it did look like he was doing something a little bit different. Like, I'm not sure exactly what he was doing. I was trying to follow along, but he was pouring this and doing that and all kinds of stuff. So I'm like, you know what, maybe, just maybe, the extra money on this is worthwhile for the extra stuff that he did. So let's see. Nah, it's just a regular coffee. Anyway. So yeah, let's talk about the epidemic of insecure men. So yeah, just seeing a lot of stuff, and I'm sure you guys have probably seen some of these videos going around, these clips going around, or just people saying these things where they're just talking about, it's kind of like done under the guise of, you know, male empowerment, or, you know, promoting male confidence, the idea of male self-improvement, you know, being a man, being a leader, that kind of thing, which sounds great on the outset, but then you listen to like some of the things they say and it becomes very, very clear that it's very much the blinds leading the blinds, you know, like it's people who I feel like they don't really understand what they're talking about. It just sounds cool, like the type of thing somebody says when they've been hurt a few times and don't know how to express those feelings. And this is kind of like where I feel it comes from, because oftentimes you hear guys say things like, you know, men are more rational. Men aren't emotional. We're not emotional. We're more rational. We're logical thinkers. Women are emotional ones. Men, we're logical. We're rational thinkers. And that's not true at all. Like, it really isn't true. Like, we are just as emotional as anybody, as any woman, as any person. Just women could be just as logical as anybody else as well. It goes both ways. Now, maybe in society, and this is probably some truth, that way we're raised can promote certain ideas of what it means to be a man, and I guess that's where a lot of it comes from. But the truth is, we are just as emotional. But the sad truth is that we don't always get a lot of opportunities to really express our emotions and to really practice being emotional, because everything is practice, everything takes practice. And because we don't often get these chances, oftentimes it's man up, you know, be a man, boys don't cry, you know, that sort of thing, that we don't really get a chance to practice being emotional. So when it's time to be emotional, it comes out in oftentimes rotten ways, whether it's aggressive behavior, whether it's being rude, whether it's you know, somebody rejected you and then you start posting, you know, blogs about how they're a skank hoe or something like that. Like, we don't get to practice being emotional. So when it's time to be emotional, it often comes out in some of the worst ways. So yeah, that's like, I feel like where a lot of this is coming from. And, you know, maybe I'm talking to my arse a little bit, because then it's not like I know every single person personally. I'm going by, you know, my own personal experience and just things that I've known and seen throughout my life, which I feel applies at least in some way to what we're seeing going on with all these sort of podcasts and videos coming out with these guys saying things. So let me give you an example of something that I saw. I saw this on Twitter. Somebody posted, what did they post now? It said, if you're with if a woman is with a man and they're going out, and it's the woman wants to pay, she should give the man the money before they go to the restaurant, before they get to the restaurant, so that he can hand the money over to, you know, the waiter or cashier, whatever, and that way it looks like he's paying, because you don't want your man to look weak. And just kind of going around as a serious piece of advice that women, even a man pays, or if the woman's going to pay, then give the man the money first, so at least looks like he's paying, so it doesn't appear weak. And for me, it's like, if you can't recognize that the fact that you care so much about what other people think, that in itself is an insecurity. Like, I mean, if you look at anybody that you consider to be a secure person, look, we all got insecurities. Let's put it that way. We all got insecurities. We all got things that we're working on. We all need therapy for something or other. But generally speaking, you have people who are, let's say, a little bit more grounded, right? Or a little bit more adjusted. And any kind of behavior where you feel is like, admirable, oftentimes you'll find that people don't care what other people think, or at least they don't put that much stock in someone else's opinion. Like, why would you be worried about looking weak to a bunch of people that don't even know you? You know what I mean? Why would that even be a concern? If you're with somebody and they want to pay, they can pay. If you pay, you pay. If they pay, they pay. If you go halves, whatever you want to do, like, why does it matter that you look like you're paying? And more importantly, I feel like, especially a lot of these times when these videos, a lot of it comes down to things like money and having money and using money as a way of defining strength and character when it really isn't. The fact that you look like you're paying makes you look like the man, so to speak, where it really doesn't matter who pays, but I feel like there's a lot of times when they're speaking, it comes across where it's like, like what you bring to the table, the idea of like the man pays for this, the man pays for that, and the man, because the man's the provider, and the woman has to show her value in some way, because the man is really the one that's providing all the value by providing the money. And that's really not the case when it comes to being in a relationship. Like, there's more than one way you could contribute that has nothing to do with finances. It really doesn't matter who pays or who has the money or who doesn't have the money. This is like this. We put so much stock in this idea of wealth, when wealth or how much money you have really says nothing about your character, right? But it seems like there's this idea that if you have money, then you mean something, and if you don't have money, you don't mean something. So if a woman's paying for you, that people might think the man don't have money and the man don't mean anything. It's really not true. So I feel like people need to ask themselves, where does that feeling come from? Why do you feel that having money says something about your character and who you are as a person, or how valuable you are to society, when in truth it doesn't? Money is a man-made construct that we all kind of agree to use as a way of trade and barter. Outside of that, I mean, let's be clear. I mean, it's cool to have money. Sure, it's cool to have nice things, but outside of that, like, it really doesn't mean anything. Like, not on an intrinsic level. It says nothing about you as a person. It says nothing about your character or your actual values. If I can even speak properly. More coffee needed. But a lot of what's being said in these videos I feel like comes down to that in some degree, about the man has the money, and you got to look like you're the one in charge because you have the money. I saw this other video where this guy was saying that if a woman has a child and starts dating a guy, she needs to understand that that man who becomes the provider is the priority, even above her own child. And it's like, that is so ridiculous to me. Like, the idea that you can enter into a relationship with somebody who has a child and think that you are the priority over that child just because maybe you're paying for certain things now. Maybe you're, I don't know, helping with the mortgage or whatever. I don't know, whatever the case may be. But the idea that you think that just because you're paying for something, that you have priority over a child, that is absolutely ridiculous. As an adult, I mean, yeah, you need to take care of yourself. You need to make sure that you're okay to so that you can take care of your child, that you're okay physically, mentally, spiritually, healthy in all these aspects. You need to make sure that you are good so that you can take care of that child, sure, but you are not ever the priority over that child. If you enter into a relationship with somebody who has a kid, You need to understand that that child is the priority, that that child's well-being is priority, that your wants and needs do not come before that child. And if that's something that you can't get with, then that's not a relationship you need to be in. You know, you don't get to be like, I have the money, therefore I'm the priority. And again, a lot, like I say, a lot of these things come back to this idea of having money and being a provider. And if you're providing, then you're the one that is and it's like, bro, come on, listen. I don't know whether it's people who grew up poor and, you know, they're constantly seeing their parents having to struggle, and that somehow led into these ideas. Maybe it's a lot of different factors all rolled up into once, all coming out. A lot of different factors all contributing to it. But whatever it is, I think there's a lot of insecurity going around, and rather than it being dealt with, whether through therapy, whether through counseling, or whether just through talking it out with friends and trying to understand things, it just seems to be coming out through podcasts and TikTok videos and YouTube videos. You know, I actually saw something on Twitter a while ago where the person said men don't get therapy, men get podcasts. And at the time, I guess I didn't realize what that person meant by it, because I remember I responded to that saying, well, therapy is expensive. Because I was thinking, you know, rather than getting therapy, they're getting podcasts to kind of talk through issues and try and figure things out. That's what I was thinking. But I don't. Now that I've seen certain things going on and seen certain trends come to light, I'm like, maybe he meant something else. Maybe that guy meant something else. Men don't get therapy, men get podcasts. But yeah, I think there's a lot of insecurity going around, and a lot of it needs to be addressed because it's just coming out in some ridiculous ways. You know, especially like, you know, you see like a lot of people talking about this idea of control, being in control of another person because you have the money. You know, like, it actually does not matter who makes more money than the other, and who makes, whether she makes more money or you make more. It doesn't matter who makes more money, or if you make the same money, or if both of you are broke. You know what I mean? It does not matter. You know, what matters is that you have a genuine care for each other, that you're wanting to build something together, that you see the value in each other as individuals, as people coming together. You know, who has more money and who pays for what is irrelevant. And I feel like a lot of what happens in relationships, and, you know, thinking about, you know, like how I was raised, and, you know, my parents, and, you know, relationships I've been in, it's like, yeah, I mean, I see that it does come up, this idea of who has the money, who gets to make decisions. And really, it's like, we have to understand that when you buy into that idea, you're buying into this idea of, fundamentally, you are not in control of your own life. You know, like, if you feel like because you have money, that means that you get to make all the decisions, like, nah, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. Like, it just means that you have money. And that's cool. If you got money, you can buy cool stuff, which is great. But that's pretty much it. You know, pretty much it. Like, if you feel like, you know, I feel like people need to ask themselves, where's this idea coming from? Where are these feelings coming from? Where's this opinions coming from? You know, and my guess would be that, yeah, there's a lot of childhood trauma that is undealt with. There's a lot of toxicity that people have been through that is undealt with. And when we consider that, like I said before, a lot of times we don't get to express our feelings in ways that are conducive to a, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to sound smart, by the way. I'm probably, maybe that's part of my own thing. I should just say the word. Rather than trying to think of this big word that I read a long time ago to try and sound smarter than I am. You know, there's a lot of, I feel like it comes back to, my guess would be that it comes back to a lot of undealt with trauma, a lot of undealt with toxicity that people have been through. And because we don't get to express ourselves, because because we're often told things like, you know, man up, be a man, you know, things along those lines. You know, men are more emotional, men have it together. You know, men are the leaders, you know, and all that kind of stuff. You know, you can't lead anybody if you can't even lead yourself. And you can't lead yourself if you are displaying your insecurities and trying to make the world conform to your insecurities rather than actually addressing them and dealing with it, because that's where the real strength is, in recognizing where you're weak, recognizing where you're vulnerable, recognizing where you are insecure. And, you know, some insecurities, to be fair, I don't think we can get over. You know, I know it sounds a little bit doom and gloom, but I do believe that there are some things that we just have for the rest of our life, and that's okay in and of itself. What isn't okay is when we don't recognize that, and when we try to force this upon other people. You know, when you recognize you're not good at something, you could always ask for help. You know what I mean? It's like, let's say, as an example, let's say there's something on a shelf in a shop that you can't reach, right? You might ask someone if they can reach it for you. You know what I mean? You don't stand there jumping trying to get this thing that you can't reach. You just say, hey, do you mind getting this thing for me? And so it's like, yeah, some things you can't get over. And that's an analogy, by the way. I'm not just trying to make fun of shorter people. Not today, at least, anyway. Maybe next video. But what I mean is that there's a certain things I feel like it's just there. And we just need to recognize that it's there. And those are things that we ask for help on. You know, maybe they don't go away, and we recognize that it's there, but we could ask for help on them. I feel like that's not happening enough. You know, and it just comes out in these really toxic videos that lack the most amount of self-awareness. But yeah, I've probably rambled a bit too much. So that's all I got to say for now. But yeah, I think, look, we all need help with things. We all need counseling. We all need therapy. We all get insecurities about something. You know, none of us have it all together. There are no experts in the world on anything. We're all just figuring it out as we go along. You know, this idea that, you know, you've got to be this thing by a certain age, or you're going to have... Look, we're all just getting by. We're all just getting by as best we can. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, being weak at times. It happens. You know, we all have weaknesses. We all have vulnerabilities. We all have things that we just don't know. We all have stuff that we went through as a child, that we got to address as adults. You know, and we just got to be aware of that. And rather than trying to convince the world that you've got it together when it's clear that you haven't. You know, it's clear that you haven't. None of us do, but mate, these videos that some of these guys are putting out, it's so clear that they don't got it together. And what's sad, or I mean, that's sad enough as it is, but what's even potentially even sadder is that you see people in the comments like, yeah, this is right, and even some women in the comments like, yeah, I'll put a man over my own child. And it's like, listen, we've all got stuff from our childhood that we need to deal with, whether it's neglected parental neglect, whether it's toxic parents, whether it's abuse, whether it could be any number of things, and all the things in between. We got to deal with it. We got to acknowledge it. We got to deal with it, or at the very least talk it through openly and honestly, rather than trying to carry on these toxic traditions that, you know, we've been raised in, because it just leads to more insecure people coming up. You know, if you're a man and you feel like you need to be prioritized over a child, that child ain't growing up to be any kind of well-adjusted human being. So yeah, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, make sure you're healthy, physically, mentally, spiritually, all of that. Otherwise, yeah, just gonna be raising some insecure, maladjusted kids into this world. But anyway, yeah, I'm done for now. Let me know what you think. Drop any suggestions, recommendations, or comments. Send them through and I'll see what I can do. Like, share, subscribe, because we're doing this 10-year get me, fam. But that's going to be it for the minute. So guys, until whenever, if ever, peace.